After taking off from John F. Kennedy Airport, it was heading to the Dominican Republic. All 255 people on board that plane are believed killed. More than a dozen people on the ground are injured. 6 people on the ground reported missing now. By mid-afternoon, 161 bodies had been recovered. A number of homes in the neighborhood there caught fire because of the crash. 44 fire trucks and 200 firefighters were on the scene in the initial moments. Senior Bush administration officials say there was an explosion aboard the plane, could have contributed to the crash. Investigators, though, say it is still too early to tell just what happened. But today's events certainly created some sort of a shockwave on Wall Street. There are a lot of ripple effects from this. So joining us now to talk about how the business world reacted, Fortune Magazine's Andy Serwer, who's live from New York. Hi, Andy. What about it?
Well, you know, I was watching this whole thing unfold with Paula Zahn at CNN, and at 9:30, sort of when the news broke, and we just watched stock trading, and the stocks just plummet. The Dow was down well over 100 points towards 200. I think I saw 170 and more. And it sort of became, the day became kind of a microcosm of a crisis. The typical things started to happen. Stocks took a hit, gold went up, oil started reacting. Interestingly, because there was no treasury bond trading, because of the Veterans Day holiday, traders went and bought European bonds, so they went way up. And actually, it's interesting, oil, which usually goes up in this situation, went down because they shut the airports, and traders thought this might slacken off demand, so that was interesting there. And then we saw all kinds of interesting stuff going on with certain stock groups. Obviously, the airlines were very weak. American, of course, was down, UAL and Delta, and the hotel and leisure stocks took a big hit. Things like Marriott, Four Seasons, MGM, and then the online travel companies like Travelocity and Expedia also took big hits. But I think tomorrow what's going to be really interesting, Linda, is that Treasury bonds are going to be very active, and I think people are going to be buying them. Again, sort of a ripple effect of fear. But in the end, you know, the markets sort of behaved themselves pretty well, and we didn't get a huge drop as the news came out that it does not appear to be a terrorist attack. We still don't know that for sure, but that's what we're hearing, and that's how the traders on Wall Street were responding.
Well, Andy, I want to ask you a little bit more about what you expect tomorrow and the days to come, because the leading theories right now are some sort of mechanical problem. The airports were open again before the afternoon was over. What does this say about the days ahead of us?
Well, I really think, Linda, it's not going to be good news for the airlines because, you know, again, people see this kind of thing happening and they're just not going to go to the airports and fly. Now, we all know that statistically, if in fact this was a crash, it's sad, but it's true. These things just do happen, and you look at the number of flights there are in the country and the world, and it's really not at all dangerous to fly. It's more dangerous to get on the highway. But given the environment of 911, I really think it's going to hurt. And again, these kind of resort areas, the gaming stocks, the hotel stocks, are also going to feel the pinch. And, you know, other things change, too, because we noticed a big spike in telephone traffic this morning, this afternoon, people calling up and making sure their loved ones are okay. So all kinds of dislocations.
And just to tell them what had happened if they hadn't heard. Andy Serwer in New York, thank you very much for your take on all of this. Now we toss things over to Renee San Miguel. Renee.
Thank you very much, Linda. On this day to observe the Veterans Day holiday, where U.S. servicemen and women are risking their lives to fight terrorism in the war in Afghanistan, we continue our conversation with veteran and Senator Max Cleland of Georgia. Thanks for coming back. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. This is a very special time for us.
It must be. And not only as a former veteran, Vietnam veteran, but also as a member of
the industry and you.
Miss Gibson has the latest.
And it has been quite some time since a plane came down, but still you can smell jet fuel and smoke in the air at this hour. There are still several hundred paramedics, firefighters, and police officers who remain on the scene. As you can tell back there, their job right now is primarily an investigation and a recovery job. And so far, we are told the latest numbers, they have recovered some 222 bodies. 6 people on the ground remain missing. A lot of people here are still trying to figure out exactly what happened. Just minutes after taking off from Kennedy Airport in New York City, American Airlines Flight 587 to the Dominican Republic crashed into a residential neighborhood in Queens. An eyewitness describes the scene.
I saw the engine come off the left side of the plane, and a lot of debris coming from behind it with the engine. And then I saw the plane lift over.
It was hanging to the right like this, and the wing was leaning down, and then it just, within 30 seconds, just started spiraling down, and then it just, a big black puff of smoke.
Homes in the area were set ablaze, and it appears none of the 255 passengers and crew members on board survived.
When we went up in the helicopter and saw it, it was amazing how the plane just landed in one small defined area as opposed to hitting a number of homes.
The New Yorkers are resilient and strong and courageous people, and will help their neighbors overcome this recent incident that took place.
Rescue workers have recovered one of the black boxes, which could provide clues to the cause of the crash.
Given the changed world we live in today, it will be as important as it has ever been to quickly and to accurately determine the cause of this accident.
Officials say so far there is no evidence of any terrorist involvement. And this crash only adds to the pain already felt by people who live in this quiet community here in Queens, in part because they lost more than 100 of their residents when the Twin Towers came down exactly 2 months ago. Reporting live from Queens, New York, I'm Candace Gibson. Let's go back to you.
All right, and the impact of the crash is being felt here at home as well. At McGee-Tyson Airport, Continental Express saw some delays with their flights to Newark.
It's actually been more than 2 months since the September 11th attack, but many passengers tell Live at 5 they haven't been scared away from the skies.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Ditchie. What's your take right now, based on what we know
in the Rockaway neighborhood?
Giuliani says by mid-afternoon, 161 bodies were recovered. There were 255 people on board the Airbus A300, which was bound for the Dominican Republic. Investigators are proceeding on the assumption that the accident was caused by a mechanical problem and not an act of terrorism.
This is the first airline crash since September's terrorist attacks, and it's causing some concern at our nation's airports. WVLT Volunteer TV's Bob Yarbrough joins us live now from McGee-Tyson Airport. And Bob, is today's accident making people even more nervous to fly?
Well, Liz, many travelers say they are a bit troubled by today's plane crash, but they're not making big changes in the way they travel. Any alterations to their plans, they say, are mostly personal. For many McGee-Tyson passengers, air travel safety just became even more uncertain. And today's New York plane crash is providing a strong sense of deja vu.
Well, obviously, the first question in my mind was, is this another terrorism attack? And your ears are glued to the radio, and you're just trying to pick up all the information you can and find out how it's going to impact your day.
The airport authority says security at McGee-Tyson is not any stricter because of the accident. However, the awareness of many airline passengers seems to be climbing another notch.
And the first thing I thought about is where I'm at and where I'm going. You'd be a little bit more aware of the people that are on the planes with you and who's in the airport.
And while the business plans of many frequent flyers remain the same, the fear of terrorism is forcing a more personal change.
Actually, I give out my itinerary to more of my family members than I ever did before. I travel frequently for my office, and so that way, just in case something happens, they know exactly where I am and if I'm safe and if they need to be concerned.
Following today's crash and September's attacks, confidence in the airline's security seems to remain fairly strong.
I'm fairly confident. I think that there are enough safeguards in place already to deter most anything that could happen.
Now, even though security does remain high here at McGee-Tyson Airport, it has not been altered today as a result of the plane crash either. Many of the flights were not affected here locally. Some were delayed, however, those more with a direct result and a direct connection to the New York area. Everything, though, we are told, pretty much back to normal. In Blount County, I'm Bob Yarbrough, WVLT Volunteer TV News. Liz?
All right, thanks, Bob.
While government officials say they found no evidence indicating today's crash was a terrorist act, investigators still can't rule that out. Here are major developments in the war on terrorism today. The Taliban has deployed tanks at major roads leading into the capital city of Kabul in anticipation of an all-out assault by opposition forces. Meanwhile, a third journalist is confirmed dead in northeastern Afghanistan. The German news magazine Stern says one of its workers died in the same attack that killed 2 French radio reporters. Well, thousands gathered in downtown Knoxville earlier today to watch the Veterans Parade. It was one of the biggest in years, and Volunteer TV's Rudy Cooks takes a look at the enormous interest.
They come for different reasons.
I just felt like with everything that's been going on since the September 11th events, we need to really appreciate our veterans.
The vets, like George Saman, say they do appreciate this year's larger crowd, but not the reason behind it.
It's a shame it took that bomb and airplane to bring people to realize, you know, what the soldiers really do when they in the fighting going on, you know. But I think they understand now, and I think they more appreciate of the troops.
For some, it's memories of past battles and concerns for what's to come.
It's not something we're going to solve with one mission. It's going to take time, and it's going to take our support to our government to solve this thing.
One generation talks about their battles, another listens and prepares.
Battalion, attention!
When you first sign up, you don't really think about that you might be called, but in the back of your mind, you know. And as Marines, that's what we train every day for that day that when we get called to the test to fight for freedom.
A day of honoring those who have served and those who will serve in the days to come.
If I'm called to service, then I will go and serve my country, but if they don't want me, I'll go and volunteer.
Everywhere you look, a new sense of patriotism.
You see at school, you know, see flags on students' windows, stuff like that. You never saw that before. It's a different atmosphere than it has been in the past.
This parade is not unlike many parades before, but this day is very different.
I'm glad that I could here to see this, the turnout.
Rudy Cooks, WVLT Volunteer TV News, Knoxville.
Now, veterans tell us this was the most attended parade in years. One vet went on as far to say that he hasn't seen this kind of support for the military since World War II.
In other news, the Tennessee Department of Transportation began paving Neyland Drive today. They'll be back to finish the job tomorrow, so between 9 a.m. and 3, you may want to stay away from Neyland Drive. And now let's get a check from our eye in the sky on traffic. Pete Michaels, what does it look like out there tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what, all in all, hasn't been bad at all. You're waiting for friends or family to come in. They'll make it on time. It's been fairly quiet. We had a couple of wrecks on Chapman Highway. You may still see investigators, one in John Sevier and the one down in Sevier County. There's still a short little line here looking at the on and off ramps at Level Road at Campbell Station. That shouldn't surprise anybody. There is a short little line as we look at this on-ramp from the interstate, from James White Parkway. That's still about 2 minutes, but all in all, we're in great shape. Have a good evening, everybody. For Volunteer TV Skywatch, this is Pete Michaels. Good evening.
Thanks, Pete. Checking our pump pricer report, the viewers tell us that Middlesboro, Kentucky is the place to go. As you can see, the Kroger there is selling gas for 96 cents a gallon, while the Walmart is at 98 cents a gallon. Closer to home, the Raceway in Oliver Springs is at $1.02, and the Asheville Highway Food City is $1.04. The Pilot on Campbell Station Road is $1.05, and the Weigels on John Sevier Highway and the Citgo in Maryville are at $1.06. Well, if you find a lower gas price, give us a call, 656-TV4U, or you can email us at pumppricer@wvlt-tv.com. And they're certainly pumping out blood on UT's campus today.
That's right. Today launched the annual Blue-Orange Blood Drive, a blood drive competition between UT fans and Kentucky fans, and Tennessee fans who bleed orange headed out to blood donation sites.
This is my first time donating. Came down here after the 9/11 incidents, actually, and they told me to come back this week because big support of volunteer fans.
The drive goes on all week at Medic Blood Center on Ayler Avenue.
November and December are notoriously low months for people to donate blood, so this is good news.
It is. But when you think of Christian music, gospel and hymns often come to mind.
Coming up a little later, we'll show you why you may not recognize some of today's contemporary Christian music.
And then the Tennessee Traveler takes us on a skyway that was created by a modern-day wagon train.
And we wish we could find some rain in those skies, but it's not showing up just yet. I'll have your forecast coming up.
East Tennessee's most accurate and dependable weather forecast from WVLT, Volunteer TV's Skywatch 8 weather team.
Well, welcome back. We only enjoy the weather for so long before we start complaining about it. It's dry. We need the rain, and not just for the forest fires that are popping up, but people with allergies. We need something to take it out.
It's very dry air out there, and it's going to be that way, at least it looks like this week. I don't see any big changes coming up. We're just like scanning the skies, looking for any moisture we can find out there. And right now, The only pocket we can find is down in Texas, where they're getting a few showers. Otherwise, there's just a huge expanse of dryness that continues over much of the country, and it looks like it's going to be that way for much of the week as well. Back up to the north, some colder air is making its way into New England. That's a little bit of cold air from Canada. And out on the west, a big storm is kind of spinning inward, so they're getting some showers and some snow in the higher elevations out in California. As a matter of fact, warnings have been issued for that. 63 degrees turned out to be our high temperature for today. That was at 3:50 this afternoon. Low this morning of 40 degrees at 7:30. Those temperatures are pretty close to where they should be this time of the year. And you can see the records there as well, 77 and 20 degrees. Temperatures around the region right now in the 60s and the 50s. 60 degrees up in the Tri-Cities, also here, also in Oak Ridge. 56 degrees up in London and Corbin. 58 degrees over on the Plateau in Crossville, and 64 in Chattanooga. Our humidity levels now at 40%. The pressure is rising and winds are from the northeast at about 5 miles an hour. Here's the satellite image. You can see we've got mostly clear skies with a few clouds over the western sections of Tennessee, the northern sections of Mississippi, and back into parts of Alabama. Most of the cloud cover, however, is in Texas and Louisiana. That's where they're getting a couple of scattered showers, and a few showers begin to gather just off the east coast. There's a developing low right here. We'll keep an eye on that over the next few days because we're looking for anything that might provide us with any kind of rain. But right now, high pressure ridge is in place. It looks like it's still going to be here. And that's going to block everything out. So the air is still going to be very dry over the next several days with little change coming up. Temperatures aren't too bad either. They're about where they should be this time of the year. And that should continue because all the cold air is still well up to the north in Canada. They're going to get a little taste of it in New England over the next 24 hours. But then later this week, it'll be completely removed. And it still looks like we're talking about pretty mild weather in our area, certainly, for the next several days. Clear and chilly tonight, the overnight low at 36 degrees. Then for tomorrow, sunny and very dry, 65, the high temperature for tomorrow. Up to 66 on Wednesday with a few clouds in our area from that Texas system. Otherwise, temperatures continue climbing as we head out the week, and low temperatures will be in the 40s.
Once again, he's got such an easy job, doesn't he?
I know. What do you do all day? We'll discuss it
All right,
later.
thanks, Greg.
All right, September 11th changed the way many Americans live our lives daily.
Including the music we listen to and even the way preachers preach. Both stories are coming up next. Pastors came together today with one mission in mind.
But that mission may not be what you're thinking. As WVLT Volunteer TV's Kelly Parker shows us, these men and women were preparing to lead our nation in one of the most uncertain times in history.
The choir still sings the same songs. The Sunday sermon is still what these folks will leave the sanctuary with. But the mission for the man behind the pulpit has taken on a new meaning.
September the 11th changed a lot of things about us and about the way we do church.
That's why hundreds of pastors from across Tennessee came together today for the Tennessee Baptist Convention. Pastors in training like Tyler Roten are looking to these veteran ministers to help lead the country.
I think that's our calling, is to go out and bring people to Christ. And that's what I think this is all about, bringing people to His church and to teach and equip them for ministry.
And after September the 11th, churches around the East Tennessee area needed very little help to pack their pews.
We were pleased. I guess shocked would be a word also that would fit there. And we saw a renewed commitment.
And those large numbers of crowds pouring into area churches after September 11th were somewhat short-lived. Now that the numbers are slipping back down, area pastors say that fact is not discouraging them at all. In fact, it's having an opposite effect in most churches.
I think there is a sense of urgency among the pastors now and among the congregations. Anytime you go into a crisis mode, there are always difficulties, and so we're just trying to encourage one another.
It's also a great time to get to know other pastors and young pastors, and to see some of the ideas they have, and also just to rejuvenate the whole year.
And these pastors say the encouragement they received this week will help them prepare their congregations for anything that is to come. Kelly Parker, WVLT Volunteer TV News.
The Tennessee Baptist Convention runs through Wednesday at First Baptist Church in Concord, and the pastors will be participating in workshops and planning events for next year.
Well, Christian music has long been a staple of many radio stations, but since the September 11th tragedy, more people are attracted to it than ever before. WVLT Volunteer TV's Chloe Maroney joins us, and Chloe, Christian music seems to be more popular now than ever.
That's right. The Gospel Music Association reports sales are up more than 20% in recent weeks. But some of the music may surprise you. It's not what you think Christian music might be.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
It seems like a typical rock concert. But these are some of the sounds of Christian music, known as Christian alternative.
It's music you could, if you go to a dance at school or something, they could play this music and people could, dance to it.
And thousands of people do dance and yell to this hard rock music with a soft message.
People are not being so ultra-conservative when it comes to their music and realizing that God can be worshiped through more than just, a choir and a piano.
So why are people turning to Christian music now more than ever?
Right now people are seeking for answers, and it seems like people are coming in looking for specific pieces of music that deal with grief.
Workers at this Christian store tell us it's not just alternative that people are attracted to.
Like the boy bands and girl bands too that do the dancing and stuff, which you used to not have that in Christian music.
Workers here can't keep shelves stocked, and sales have doubled recently. But contemporary Christian music isn't all that's booming.
The Southern gospel music has really evolved lately as well.
At Praise 96.3, more listeners than ever are tuning in to the country-type Christian music.
For me, the calls since the 11th have really picked up with people that would say they've never listened.
The radio station is expanding its format to include praise and worship to accommodate younger listeners.
I think people are looking for something more, maybe, something that they can't get from an entertainment form of music. More so than...
Now, Alan, the Gospel Music Association reports Christian music is on track to sell more than 50 million records for the first time in history. Now, an example of how big Christian music is, last week around 500 people showed up at Cedar Springs Christian Bookstore just to meet the band Third Day. And they weren't even playing that night. They just wanted to meet them. Alan?
Wow, incredible. Chloe, thank you. Elsewhere tonight, the Supreme Court decided last week to hear a case about drug testing in schools. They'll rule whether schools may give drug tests to nearly any student involved in after-school activities.
So we put that question to you in an online poll. Would you favor random drug tests in East Tennessee schools? Here are the results of the poll. 61% of you responding said yes, random drug tests are appropriate. 31% said no, while 7% were not sure. And thank you again for taking part in that online poll. Up next in sports, Eric Waddell will be in to tell us about professional tennis invading East Tennessee.
And tonight in Alcoa, it's a special night as the Blount County Sports Hall of Fame inducts its new enshrinees. Sports is next.
Now, from East Tennessee's sports leader, it's WVLT Volunteer TV Sports Overtime with Rick Russo and the entire WVLT Volunteer TV sports team.
Welcome back to Sports Overtime. We start tonight over in Blount County, where it's a very important evening for some folks. Our Hall of Famer in training, Justin Croft, joins us. Justin, tell me what's going on in Blount County.
Eric, thanks for those nice words. I tell you, this must be Hall of Fame month. A couple weeks ago, you were in Indiana at the Football Hall of Fame. Last week, I'm with Buzz Peterson at the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Tonight, the Blount County Sports Hall of Fame induction here at the Airport Hilton. And with me is the very special guest speaker and very special man himself, Mr. John Ward. John, first off, we haven't seen you, heard from you lately. Just tell your fans, we're wondering how you've been.
Well, I don't broadcast anymore. I miss doing the broadcasts. I miss the games. But basically, I still have my business. Broadcasting Tennessee football and basketball games was always a hobby. I didn't do it for a living, and most people say you sure couldn't have made a living doing it. But anyway, and I still have my business, and we travel and so forth.
A special night for most of these guys,
yes.
But special for you as well because you know a couple of the guys in the ceremony this evening.
Well, it's special for any community because athletics in Blount County is important as it is in counties throughout the state of Tennessee. Benny Dalton will be inducted tonight. Benny Dalton played football at Tennessee and was a great player and had a great game against Auburn in 1969, the second year I broadcast Tennessee football. I'll never forget it.
All right. Well, John, we thank you so much for joining us.